Hi everybody. We're just going to get started with the live demo class for the live session for the Node.js course. I just want to know that whether you are finding the audio fine or not. You guys have a chat panel, I think, on Zoom. If you're using this chat, and there should be QA. So if you have questions, you can ask via the QA. If you just want to talk about anything, you can click on chat, right? So cool. Audio is okay. Everybody's saying, right? Awesome. So I think most of you might have seen the video by Pratik Bhaiya. He mentioned about why we are doing the live courses, because we want people at home. You can in this duration probably you can do a complete course. So this particular course is a full stack web development course where we learn front-end development and back-end development. The back-end part is done in Node.js, right? So I will quickly take 5 minutes to give you an overview of what all we are going to cover in the course, and then we will actually get started, where today we will be doing the introductory part, some HTML, CSS stuff. So we'll do some fun little things with CSS, animations and all, right? Let's see. So is my screen share visible to everybody? I hope, right? Everybody can see the screen. Cool. So I'll tell you what this course is about is that we have um, uh, the web development with Node.js course. So the kind of things that we cover in this is that we have got HTML basics, CSS basics. We learn how to do transforms, transitions, etc. using CSS, and responsive web design. We learn how to use CSS libraries like Bootstrap, Materialize CSS. Okay, we make some front-end projects like making a to-do list, a shopping cart kind of projects, and then we have like a set of 6-7 lectures where we go in depth into JavaScript. So we have like doing object-oriented programming with JavaScript, doing things that are like different in JavaScript from languages you might have tried out before. For example, closures, how they work, how do map, reduce, filter, this kind of things they work, right? And then we started using Node.js. So Node.js is basically a framework to create backend servers. So we have to build a server using JavaScript, using Express, and then we cover database management using both with MySQL and with MongoDB. Then we cover stuff like socket.io, where we learn how to build chatting kind of applications. After every topic, we build a project using that topic. So we learn to learn databases, then we build, say, a blogging app using databases, and so on. Then we learn socket.io, we make a chatting app using that, right? So that's a very tiny overview of the course. Today, what we will be doing is just get started with the HTML CSS part. How much about HTML and CSS do you guys know? Can you just answer on the chat? Like, have you done a little bit of HTML before, or are you like haven't done HTML CSS at all before? Never worked on a website at all? What's like the status of like how much experience have you had? Very less. Okay, nothing. Um, Not at all. Okay, cool. That's fine. So. Basics in school, a little bit. Oh, okay. So what we do is, I think generally when we have a full-fledged lecture during the course, we have that as I think 2 to 3 hours long, usually 3 hours long. And during that, I usually pause so that I show something, you can try it out yourself, and then I continue along with more with that. It's kind of like that format. During the demo session, we'll be having a 1 hour demo session. So, I will not go into any particular topic extremely deep so that you need time to practice it for 10 minutes because that's not the amount of time we have. So, but I will cover the topics that we usually cover in the first 2 or 3 sessions, and we will get to build some fun stuff also along with that. I'll give you an idea about what tools and all we are going to be using. So as a text editor, you can use any one of these. So there is VS Code, which is Visual Studio Code. It's the one that I usually use when I'm teaching your classes for as a text editor while editing both front-end code and back-end code. There is also Atom by GitHub, and then there is a text editor called Brackets by Adobe. So all three are very good text editors for web development stuff. Apart from that, there is a IDE also called WebStorm. Though WebStorm is a paid IDE, so there are if you are a student, college student, you can get a free version of it called WebStorm. That's also a very good idea. So you can use any one of them. I personally would be using VS Code. So, and how we will do is we will be creating a folder here for the course, and we would be sharing that also with you like during the class itself, so that like I might be editing multiple files so that you have access to the source code live as I am coding. And so let's get started, right? So there is a hand raise feature right now. So I think people can raise their hand if they want to talk, but I think I would prefer if you guys talk via chat if you have something to say, rather than giving you audio access right now. I'm just because we're just getting started. So yeah. Okay, so this is Visual Studio Code, and what we will do is say we create a folder called HTML basics here, and we will start off with a file inside it, say index.html. Is the screen text size all fine, or do you need the font or anything to be a little bigger? Let me know that. A little bigger? Cool. Now okay? All good with everybody? Awesome. So if you have VS Code, in VS Code, there is this thing in the left side called extensions. So inside extensions, there is something called live server. There is a extension called live server. You can install that. It's a very nice extension. What it helps us do is, I will tell you. So we have an HTML file. You can generate the basic HTML template by writing HTML:5. And this generates a basic HTML document template inside which you can start creating a web page. Right. So this is an HTML document. Usually starts with HTML opening tag, ends with HTML closing tag. It has head, which gives some information for the browser. It has body, inside which we write stuff which the user is going to finally see. Okay. So body tag, we can write like some normal text here. Okay. And this text, how it will be visible. Press Control Shift P, you get the command box of the editor, and inside the command box you can write open with live server. So open with live server is a command that is available if you install the extension, the live server one. So now you do that, and here is the site running. Let me just get it there. Cool. Now the advantage of having live server is that if you make any changes here in your text editor, save the file. Every time you save it, stuff gets updated there. Okay. So basics of HTML is you can write any text. It gets shown up here. If you want to have new lines, you need to use the BR tag. Okay, then only things go to the new line. But otherwise, even if you like write a lot of white space between two lines, it still will show up as only one single space. Okay, so in HTML, this is all just syntax, formatting. For formatting, you can indent it as much as you want. You can enter as many new lines as you want. If you want to really put things in the next line, you have to use a BR element. So these kind of things are called elements. Elements can have an opening and closing side like this. They might be single-sided also like this. So BR tag is single-sided. It does not have an opening and a closing side. Body has an opening and a closing side. So you write the contents of the body inside it. Okay. So I think people who want to do hands-on, they can actually do. I think you can open up a code editor. Maybe, I mean, I'm going to be covering quite a lot of things together, but you can just keep trying a few things around there. So yeah. Now elements, there are, so I'll just cover quickly, taking 10-15 minutes, not more than that. So there are heading elements. They show up like this from H1 till H6, right? Then there are list elements, which you can have unordered list and ordered list. So unordered lists show up in form of bullet points like this. Sorry, save. Yeah, so it shows up like bullet points like this. Then there is ordered list elements. So ordered list elements show up with numbers. There's a lot of details you can go into. For example, you can change the type to something like A, so it will be coming out as it'll come up as AB instead of 1, 2, 3. So there's a lot of things that you can cover. One very good place to get a reference of all HTML elements that exist in our HTML language syntax is that you can search MDN, element reference. So MDN, it stands for Mozilla Developer Network, which is the best place to look up documentation on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript front-end development. It's maintained by primarily by Mozilla, who makes Firefox, but it was also contributed to by Microsoft and Google, who create Internet Explorer and Chrome. So it's basically the most authentic place to find documentation about everything that is all the syntax regarding HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. Okay. So this has a list of all elements that are possible, some description about what those elements do, right? The list is very long. There are, I think, all close to, I think, 60, 70 or something like that elements. Even like HTML5 active elements are also, I think, more than 30. So you don't need to go and memorize all of them. There are around a handful of them, 10, 15 of them, which are very frequently used. As we build more and more websites, you would get an idea which ones are used more, right? There are some more interesting ones, like, these are just basic HTML formatting and all. Then this is there are elements to take input from the user. So those are called form elements. So form elements are, there is say input element, which people can, input elements are something people can type data into. By the way, just to answer a few questions on the chat, a recording for the demo classes would not be available later on. Okay. So they are available for their actual live classes. People who enroll, those live classes would be available. The topics covered in the demo class are going to be covered from the beginning in the actual sessions when they start. And they're going to be covered in a little slower pace than what we're doing during the demo class. Okay. And there's going to be like live teaching assistants during the lecture, and after the lecture, if you have any doubts, you can connect with them, and you can show the source code if there's something wrong or not in that. So those things are there in when we actually start the main sessions, which starts next week. Okay, next week which starts, right? Cool. So input elements can also be of like different types. So for example, if I have a date input element, then pretty interestingly it becomes like this, where you can have a calendar and pick a date from that. You can have an input element which is say color input. So in that case, you get a color picker also in your browser like this, and then there's a lot of input, different kinds of elements. So if you have a input element which is of type number, and you set the min equal to something, say 112, and you max you set equal to say 356, something like that, right? So this number would show up, and if you start increasing, it will start from that number, and if you decrease below 112, it will not go. So these are input elements. They are used for taking input from the user. All of the elements that we're making, they are looking ugly by default, because we can style them using CSS. We are going to get to that very soon. So by default, browsers don't provide very nice, beautiful styling. Things look very 1990s kind of thing, because browsers have not really updated the styling or anything. And browsers generally just, HTML is a markup language. It's not a styling language. CSS is a styling language. So HTML is only to demarcate, okay, this element is for input, this element is for output, this element is a paragraph, that's it. How it should be shown, whether it should have a separate font, a color, whether it should have margin padding, all of those things, that's where, CSS is there for. Cool. Then there are, say, media elements. So what media elements are is like, let me do something. I'll just quickly show an existing one instead of downloading some media files or something like that. Yeah, so media elements, we have got video and we have got audio elements. So you can have like a MP3 file or an MP4 file, right? And those elements would uh, show up like this, you know. So I think there's this audio playing, which you can see because of this, because the audio is set autoplay. If I remove the autoplay, then it will not play by default. This is the video. Video can come with controls. You can remove the controls if you want to. Then the video will not have any controls. You can then autoplay the video. So you will have a video that is playing, and users will not have a control to stop them, and so on. You can like loop the video as well. Okay, so if you have loop the video, it will, when it ends, it will loop automatically, and so on, right? So these are media elements. There is image, img, for images, and just stop the website. Yeah. So we've got images, we have got video, we have got audio. So these are your media elements. Cool. Then what we have is, let's actually move on to seeing how we can use CSS along with HTML to style the elements that we have, and try to create some, nice, cool stuff. Okay. So let's, by the way, how I will share the source code with you guys is that generally what we do is something like this. This for all our courses, not just the live courses, or for our online as well as for offline courses. We create a GitHub repository where people can just download the source code that the mentor has been teaching. They can get it from there. So So guys, I will just share this link on the chat with you guys. Okay. So you can go there and you can find out the code that I had written. And every time I update something in my code, I'll just, keep on updating it there. That's how we usually share code during our classes as well. Okay. So let's move into the CSS part. Okay. So let's say we have this page and it has got, say, an H1, which is, and say we have a few paragraphs. P is for paragraph tags. Like this. Okay. So what CSS helps us do is basically we can write a style tag like this in the head. And here the syntax of CSS is we can pick a particular kind of element, like say H1, and I want the color of the text in H1 to be blue. So you write H1, which is an element selector, which tells you that it will apply this object of styles to H1 elements. Inside the object, you write it form of key value pair. So key color, value blue. What all keys exist, so you can find on MDN an exhaustive list of CSS attributes again as well. But again, as we keep on using them in the course, you will see which are the most common ones that we use very frequently. Doing this, what we gain is that this is how our page looks like. Okay, this is the page, and like this. One downside to the way we had just done is that over time this style element can become pretty big, and then your HTML file will have like lots of CSS code and lots of HTML code. So those are two different languages. CSS is, like, as you can see, the syntax itself is very different, and the syntax of HTML is pretty different. So better thing that people usually do is that people keep a separate file called, say, style.css. Any .css you can save, right? And people copy the style into that. Okay, and instead of a style tag, what we do is we have a link tag, and we write link relationship style sheet href, the path of the file where our style sheet is. So yeah, Nakul, you want to say something? Hey, Nakul, you want to say something? Yes, I cannot really hear you. Could you just write it in the chat instead? About Hindi. Okay. So I usually teach most of the courses that I do at Coding Blocks in English only. Uh, I don't know, like maybe a bit of English sometimes here and there might be there, but majorly my courses are going to be in English. So I would prefer to keep my demo classes also in English because that's what I'm more comfortable teaching in, right? Um, so yeah. So we're talking about styles now. For these paragraphs, now apart from selecting elements, like we can select P and we can say color is red. So then all the paragraphs will become red. If I write text align right, then all the paragraphs are going to be right aligned. The thing is, like, if I don't want all my paragraphs to be right aligned, I only want alternate ones to be right aligned, right? So there are quite a few things we can do. Okay, so like what we can do is we can give some classes. So let's say we give this paragraph of class as right, and we give this paragraph of class as right. Then we can do is all the paragraphs which have right class to be text align right. Okay, so p dot right means paragraphs with right class. So this way, as you can see, only the second and fourth one are on the right side, the first and third one are on the left side. Okay, CSS is pretty powerful. In fact, you don't need to manually go and give such classes like this. Also, what you can do is, instead of these paragraph, let's say I'm creating a few divs. So let's say we have these divs here. So we have these are divs. It's written like this. We can also write a div um, nth child 2n plus 1, and then we can write text align right. Okay, so then also, as you can see, divs, two of them are on the left, two of them are right. So you can actually write like this. You can write that every 2n plus 1th child is going to be on the left or the right or something like that. So these are called pseudo selectors. These are called classes. Then we have IDs also. So we can give some. You can give this paragraph an ID. ID equal to, let's say, para 3, and then we can select something with a ID selector as hash para 3, and maybe we want the font family to be, say, Arial, and we want the font size to be, say, 22 pt, a little bigger. You'll see that. So this paragraph is bigger and the font is different, right? So in many ways you can select different things in your page, give them different styles like that, and so these are called selectors. These are called the CSS rules that are applied to that particular thing. Okay. Let us talk about say some more cool stuff that we can do with CSS, because I mean it's a demo class and let's have fun here instead of going through step-by-step things, because we do that during the classes and we make sure that we cover all the basics and we cover all the kinds of selectors, how we combine selectors. So all of those things we do. So let's talk about some cool stuff here, which is let's say expandable list. Okay, so let's create a expandable list, and so what I'm going to do is so we have this HTML file and we will connect the CSS to it. Cool. So let's say we have this list of items on my page. Okay. Then inside a list item, I can create another unordered list and create more li items inside that. Okay. How does this list look like? It looks like this, that there is item number 1 inside which there are sub items. Okay, and then inside one of them we can create, say, further list items, and in fact one of the internal list can be ordered as well. Okay. uh, So I think it's getting too indented. So let me just reduce the indentation a little bit so that. Cool. Okay. So this is how we create, like, nested listing like this. So to write 5 lines together, you usually press control button, I think on Windows, option button on Mac, and you can insert cursor at multiple places, like here, 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 and you can type things which get into multiple places like this. Cool. I think somebody asked that on the chat. I hope that answers your question. Let's say I do the same thing with a few other list items as well. So with this li as well, let's say I create a ul and then I create an li, and then let's say we just copy that a few, and then here also we do another ul, and then we do li. Okay, so this is how my list looks like. Okay. So what I want to do is I don't want the inner items to be visible by default. I only, when I want hover on a top level item, I want the items underneath it to be visible. Okay. So let's see how those kind of things are done, right? So first of all, in CSS, if I write ul space ul, and I write here that color red, you will see that the internal ULs are red in color. Okay, the outer one is not. So this kind is called a combining rule. So UL space UL means a UL which is inside an outer UL. Okay, we can also write like this, in which case so we can write li and greater than UL like this. So this means only ULs which are directly under an li will be colored in a certain way, like, or I can do like this. So here you can see only this OL is colored as red. Okay. So these kind of combinations are called CSS combinators. So usually in class we cover these, a lot of combinators are there. There is a descendant selector, and just a second, I think. Yeah, so there's a descendant selector. Then there is a child combinator. Child means, direct descendant. So if A is directly inside B, you can write B greater than A, like that. And then there is adjacent sibling, which means that if an img tag comes after a p tag, you can apply some styling on that. And then there is general sibling selector. So those kind of things are very useful. So what I want to do is, let's say I write ul and then inside another ul if there is. So I write that visibility hidden and height 0. What will happen is that the inner ULs have become invisible. Okay, that's because I've said that ULs which are inside an UL. So let me make this actually an UL only. So ULs which are inside an UL, their visibility is going to be hidden, and their height is going to be 0. Next, what I do is, inside an li, if there is an UL, we want is that when I hover over a particular li item, so what I can do is I can write li colon hover and ul, and then I can write like reset this properties. I can say visibility is going to become visible and height will become auto again. So when I do that, you see what happens. I have said that if there is an unordered list inside an li which is currently hovered. Okay. Now writing this li greater than ul means any unordered list which is directly inside a li. But writing like this means any unordered list which is directly inside a li, which is currently hovered. Okay, so this colon hover thing, it's called a pseudo selector. It's there to tell us that when the mouse is hovered on an li item, the li item is not just li, it's li colon hover. That's how it is possible to select it. So I want all the unordered lists directly inside hovered li to be visible. So when I hover over li, the unordered list inside it will become visible. I can see when I hover over this, these items are there, and then when I hover over this item, sub item, these become visible. And then I remove that, it goes away, right? So you can create like expandable lists kind of things out of this, and then based on even more things like how to create border padding and how to create positions of items, we can create proper drop downs. So for example, in our course where we cover css, we cover like how to create drop downs of this format as well. Okay, so like you can hover over something, something becomes visible here. Also, like this is being visible in a very nice way. It's coming in a floating way, transitioning. So those things also can be done. So we're gonna see those things also in css, how we can do those things. Okay, so mobile devices, of course, hover does not work. So in mobiles we have got active, which is when somebody is pressed on a particular item, or you can use JavaScript based toggling, where when you click on it once it becomes active, and then when you click on it again it becomes inactive. So there are ways to handle that on mobile devices as well, right? So web development is really interesting because you have to cater to both the people who are using keyboard and mouse kind of phase, and also people who are using it using touch screen kind of things, how to cover both kinds of scenarios. So, and then in fact on top of that, say for example I have a note, Samsung Note, and if I take my that stylus on top of it, then it actually websites behave in hover mode as well, also on a mobile device. So very interesting, like you have to cater to all of those things when you're building front end stuff, right? um, cool. Let's have another thing. Let's say we have this so Abhay is asking, could you show some of the project which will be making finally at the end of today's demo? So I think web development, after all, like is not a magic show, and we would not be making any huge project at the end of today. Like if you are just starting to do web development, I think this is very important. I think a reality check that it takes time to learn how to build things. Like even if you want to learn how to build, say, a calculator purely on the front end, it also takes learning how DOM events work and how basic mathematical operations, how you do that in JavaScript and handle those things. How do you handle, say, keeping variables in the memory of the calculator and those kind of things. So none of this is going to be easy, or none of this is gonna yeah. So finally, after we complete the course, that makes sense. So finally, after we complete the course, we build a lot of projects. I think some of them are like so this is a project that I usually get people to build, is a blogging app. So people can sign up here, have an account and all, and it's kind of like Medium. You can write an article, you can have a title for the article, right, and publish that article. So here is an article, you can write comments on that article. There are other people's article as well here, so you can go to other people's articles, follow or unfollow that user. You can favorite their articles, right? You can see articles of a particular tag. So all of these data is in the backend. So you guys can also go to demo.realworld.io, check out this. So we learn how to build backends for a website like this, how to create the front end for a website like this. Okay, then we learn how to build chatting kind of apps, where if somebody's typing and you see three dots visible on their name, then they stop typing, their message comes, that kind of a project. building a shopping cart. So products, putting those on the cart, checking those out, those kind of things. And you can go to our YouTube channel, codingblocks.com, youtube.com/codingblocks India, and search web dev project. You will find a lot of projects made by students of web development, Android, and other batches. Those projects are also up there. There are some demo videos of those projects, right? Um, the kind of projects we build in the initial few classes, during the classes itself, is say, for example, let me see. I think we would have one. Yeah, this is something we can add tasks like this. Okay, and then you click on some tasks, they become strike through, as you can see. So these are not done tasks, these are done tasks. And then you can click on clear button. So if when you click on clear, the ones which are done, they go away. Okay, so these are the kind of smaller level projects which we build after 2-3 classes, initial classes, when we learn the HTML, JavaScript, and so on. Okay. In fact, by the time you end the web development Node.js course, you would be able to also build something like, say, how our own coding blocks account.codingblocks.com. I think this site you might have seen. This is the site where people can sign up for their accounts, and they can log in via Google, Facebook, and all of these things. So the source code for this site, in fact, is also open source. This is on this URL. This is a Node.js project, right? I can share the link with you guys as well. The source code of the account.codingblocks.com website. So, and this is a Node.js project itself. It's of course, it has like lots of source code. There's going to be lots of JS files inside that, and it's a big project. It's not a small project. Of course, there's a lot of things happening out there, but by the end of the course, you would be in a state where you'd be able to, in fact, contribute or build projects like these, because most of the things that you need to build a project like an account management system, those things we learned during this course itself. So about the question regarding how much time will a class video be available? So after every class, the video is gonna be available to you till the end of your course duration, which is for 4 months. You have access to all the videos, all the content. So when you enroll for this course, we will be having live classes, 3 live classes every week around. Apart from that, you all would also be, additionally to this, have the access to the online course as well, right? The all the content that the online courses have. So for example, this is basically exactly the replacement of the offline courses that we run. So in the offline courses also, people come to classroom and they're learning. Along with that, they have the access to our online course. So every offline course that we run has a corresponding online course as well. So you guys would be having access to this web development with Node.js course here, which has got these webinars are basically roughly corresponding to the topics that we will cover in class. There are around 17 webinars around. We will have 21 classes. So one topic each webinar, you can say. Then on each topic, there are going to be a lot of further drill down videos, revision videos. So basics of JavaScript. There are videos specifically on string operations, array operations, DOM operations. So specific operations on how to, create an element in HTML using JavaScript, traverse the HTML document, replace, remove elements from that. There's basics of CSS. So all that stuff we were discussing, like selectors, combinators, siblings, all of those things are there. And there's advanced CSS part where there is transforms and transitions, right? And we have like object-oriented programming in JavaScript. There is a drill down section on that. Then especially like very important topics like how parallel programming in JavaScript works, asynchronous programming and all. And then there's like topics on a little bit of very lightweight intro to React.js, lightweight intro to Vue.js, very basics of front-end frameworks. These are not complete. React.js is not a part of the course. It just gives you an introduction to React.js if you want to venture into React after doing the course, or if you want to go into Vue.js after doing the course, similarly like that. So all of you will get access to this. Regarding GitHub, in fact, yes, there is there is a entire section on GitHub as well. So there is a webinar on Git and GitHub on the online channel, and during the classes as well, we'll be covering how to upload your source code to GitHub, how to submit your projects to me via GitHub, and all of those things. Right. So all of that stuff will get covered. Cool. So. Yeah, let's say what else I was talking about. Okay, let's build another thing. Let me just push this source code to your GitHub repository once, then we'll build one more cool little thing. Okay, so let me find out this thing. So I think we had is. Okay, so here's this nice little button we have, and not sure if you're able to see it. So this button here has a little shadow under it, as you can see. And if I hover on the button, as you can see, the button feels like it is coming out of the page. It's raising out of the page. The shadow stays at the same place, but the shadow, becomes less sharp, as you can see, because it feels like the button is getting out of the page. Can you see that, guys? And then when I click on this button, it gets pressed into the page like this. Okay. Are you guys able to see the animation? What's happening here? Looks interesting to build. So let's see how do we build things like this using CSS. Okay. So this 3D button stuff, let's say. Okay. So let's go back to our code and so I have this div, and let's say I write here, click here like this. And what we do is here in our style.css, we have this div. So I'm going to give it a height of say 70 pixel and width of say 200 pixel, and we'll give it some background color. Let's say let's give it a little nicer color. Let's say tomato color is fine. Tomato. The text color, let it be say white. Wheat. Okay. Let's say font size, let's say, is going to be 30 points. Let's see how this button starts looking. Okay, that's how it looks. Okay, so Okay, and okay, so this is button, and we have this click here kind of thing we will have there. Let's give this button a margin also. Say we give it a margin of 50 pixels so that there's some space around the button to have that animation. Okay, so let's see how we can get that animation working. So we will do is we will put a box shadow of this button. So we'll put a box shadow, and this box shadow we will put it of gray color. Okay, gray. The box shadow would be 5px. Like if I write like this, 5px 5px. What happens is there is a shadow that gets created for the box, which is 5 pixel to the right and 5 pixel to the bottom of the button. If you want it in a different direction, you can write it like this as well. Then the shadow is on the left side of the box. If you want it to the top of the box, you can create a shadow like this. Okay, so this tells which direction the shadow will get created and how big the shadow will be. So let's say I have a 5 pixel. Let's say we have a 8 pixel. Sorry, we have a 8 pixel shadow here. Okay, in this place for this button. Now, let's do is let's blur this shadow a bit, and we can blur the shadow by setting a certain pixelation for blur. Let's say I set 5 pixel of blurring. So the fourth parameter is how much blurring, and now so we have this shadow which is now a bit blurred. Okay. So what we'll do here is that we will when this button is hovered. Okay. So when somebody hovers on this button, I will make the button transform and we will basically translate the button towards left by 10 pixel and towards the top by 10 pixel. Okay, so what happens when you hover? It goes up like this. Button goes up, but the shadow also is moving along with that. So that's not something that we need, and it's happening in a very jerky way. So this is a jerky way we don't need. So what we can do is we can write here transition, and we can write 1 second. So it takes 1 second to do transitions. So it happens slowly. Okay. But it happens slowly, but it does not feel like the button is coming out of the page because the shadow is also moving. So it feels like the button is moving there. So what we do is we take the box shadow and we move the box shadow exactly in the opposite direction in the same amount. So because we are moving the box 10 pixel and 10 pixel to left and to the top, right? Because the axes are so that this direction is called downward direction. Okay, is the downward on the page. That's the positive y direction, and rightwards is the positive x direction. Okay, so that's how your axis works on HTML pages. So if you want something to move left, you do -10. If you want to move top, you do -10, like that. So let us move the shadow to the opposite direction so that the effect gets nullified. So let's do is let's make it 18 pixel, 18 pixel. Now see what happens. It feels like the button is moving, but the shadow remains where it is. Okay. Now let's do one more thing. This blurring, let's increase it when the button is far away, because when the button moves away, the blurring should also increase, because basic physics, if you remember JEE days, point source of light move, if it is not a point source of light, if it's a tube light kind of source of light, move towards the light, the sharpness of the shadow should decrease, right? I'm not sure if you guys were focusing during your optics classes or not, but anyway, so let's increase this to 10 pixel blurring. Okay, see what happens. The blurring becomes more when the button moves away from there. Okay, now what happens when you click on the button? So for clicking, there is another state called active state. Active state is when somebody has clicked on the button. So when somebody clicks on the button, I want the button to not just move to the original position, but even a little more into the page. Okay. So for that, what we'll do is we will transform not just to the original place, but a little more to right and towards bottom. So we will make it 5 pixel, 5 pixel. So this is basically moving 15 pixel, because from -10 to 5 and from -10 to 5, from it will go from -10 translate to translate 5 pixel, 5 pixel. And this will make, like when I click on it, but then again, now the shadow is moving. Okay. So we don't want the shadow to move again. So what do we do with the shadow? We take the shadow and we do the exact opposite again now. So this is 5 pixel, 5 pixel towards right and bottom. So now our shadow would be 3 pixel and 3 pixel, 8 minus 5. Okay. And the blurring, I will change it to just 1 pixel of blurring. Okay. So now hovered like this, click here, sharp shadow, as you can see, and then move out. Sharp shadow, move out. See, however this, it gets out of the screen. Click here, sharp shadow. Cool, guys. Looks good. That's how I think if you actually had a sheet, or actually had a sheet like this, and light was coming in, if it went up and down on the screen, that's exactly how it would look, right? So we have achieved this actually on a 2D screen, a 3D effect using CSS. And there are more such interesting things that we can do with CSS itself, and like make very nice looking, beautiful looking websites. The daily websites that you use, like Google's UI looks pretty nice because they have this ripple effect which happens on its buttons, right? So all of that stuff. Yeah, so a lot of guys are raising hands. Again, I would suggest if you have something to say, if you could just write on the chat itself. So classes will not continue tomorrow. I think the next demo class is day after tomorrow, and the next demo class we are going to have on building a to-do list using JavaScript. So we have I think 5 or 6 demo classes scheduled, and then before the course starts, and then we will have the actual course also getting started. So everybody who is attending the demo classes, you can tell your friends, anybody wants to. I think basics of everything from C++ to Android to interview prep and web development. I think basics everybody would be able to cover. Even can ask people to join the demo classes. The source code, we are going to be making it available on GitHub itself, and the demo classes maybe a little faster than what our actual classes are. And exactly during the classes, we don't have too many TAs right now online. Today we had just, I think, 30-40 people. So it's just me here, but usually we would have some TAs also online. But yeah, I think people, I think, are out there at their homes, and kind of a bad situation right now with colleges closed, and even like the people who are in their final year and all. When will the semester end, and what will be the job prospects and all? So I think it's good. You guys should make use of the time. Learn anything, something, not necessarily like learn web development or learn at coding blocks, I'm saying, but make use of the time, learn something, so that this lockdown and all, even after the lockdown, I think things will take a little bit of time to be normal. So by the time you are actively back to college life, or if you're working somewhere, back to your job and all, you would have spent the time actually learning something, right? So to answer Kaushal, yes, you will get access to the online WebD course, and but the duration for that is not going to be as long as the actual online course. Online course, people get 6 months access. You will get shorter access for that, and you'd get doubt support while the live classes are going on. So the live classes will go on for I think around 6 or 7 weeks, if we have 3 or 4 classes every week. So in, I think, 6-7 weeks we'll be covering the course. So between each live class, there would be TAs and all, those would be available. People who do our online classes, they have access to the doubt forum and the TAs and everything for entire 6 months. That is not here. So there's a little bit of difference. The live class basically, it's an alternative for people who are doing the classroom program. So the classroom program is where people feel very interactive. They can chat with the mentor during the class itself, and they can, raise hands, ask doubts, and then they can, TAs can, handhold them a little bit. And the online classes are again for the people who want to have like a more self-paced thing. You want to cover 10 videos today, then you want to have a 1 week break, like that, and you can, ask doubts in a more asynchronous format. You write your doubt on a doubt forum, and in a few hours somebody looks at the doubt, some TA looks at it, and they answer you, like that. So the people who preferred the online format earlier, they would want to continue to have, like, you can enroll for the online course itself. And people who were expecting to come to CV for, say, a classroom course, or you prefer classroom kind of format better. So of course, with centers and all lockdown, we can't run a classroom course. So the live course is the best alternative for the classroom programs. You have tried to give the exact classroom kind of atmosphere in this live course. I think that's the difference. So about hi Saurabh. So about freelancing, I think what we'll do is we are going to have a video coming out tomorrow or day after tomorrow, and I'm sure we're creating that video. It's going to be about how to pick up freelance work, how to pick up remote jobs, and how to develop a good freelancing profile. And there's also Naman, who was earlier a student and a TA at Coding Blocks. He's now a part-time mentor at Coding Blocks, and he works at Product Hunt as a remote employee. So we have an interview with Naman as well, where he would be describing his journey getting a remote job at Product Hunt, and how to look for remote jobs and what's his experience working at a remote job. So we are actually having a video around that in a couple of days, maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Okay. So I think that should cover your questions about freelancing. When that video comes out, stay tuned to our YouTube channel for that. Cool. So I think thank you guys for coming up, and spread the word around to your friends. If you liked the demo class, you can ask your friends to also join. Come for the first few demo class, see the topics that are covered. Get some idea, and then if you really like it, you can join the course as well. Cool. So thank you again for joining, and stay well, stay safe, stay at home, don't go out too much, and have a nice day.